And hello again, everybody. This is Randy Soplata, former host of the wildly popular international business show Standing on the Edge, aka That Hair Guy. And I'm here to ask you a question. If there was a way to go ahead and promote yourself or elevate yourself above 80% of the crowd just by doing very, very simple things, would you be interested in knowing about it? I know I would, and I wish that I had this information that I'm about to go ahead and impart to you. We're going to discuss this today. Basically, once again, I have mentioned to you several times about how to do these simple little things, how to sound professional. Today, it's going to be more like how to look professional at the same time. Now, the big thing that you want to do when you're coming to doing a podcast, and everybody's going to go ahead and tell you this, all the gurus are going to say the same thing, and that's just get started. Get started. You'll figure it out as you go along, which is true. But what happens is so many people, myself included, would get onto a podcast of their own or have this brilliant idea of making their own videos or doing something of that nature, and they'll go fall into the same trap that everybody else does, which is they go ahead and get on their phone, they start recording and doing whatever, and they're walking around and they've got their heads going every which way. Look professional. That's the tip number one. That's the biggest thing that I can go ahead and say will elevate you quicker than anything. Okay. Now, I've got some props today to go ahead and use so I can show you what I mean. And the first one, of course, is your phone. The phone is a very essential tool to go ahead and do, especially when you're recording something. But I want to go ahead and give you some very quick tips on this, okay? Because the phone itself is a fantastic tool for using this. If you're going to record your voice on a podcast type thing, then you can go ahead and hold your phone however you want to, basically. On the bottom of this particular phone, let me get it here on the screen. Bottom of this particular phone, you've got little dots right here. These are your microphone inputs right there. You've also got on the other side your headphone input, so you can go ahead and listen to what you're doing at the same time. And sometimes you can even have a cord similar to what I've got right here, excuse me, for my headphones, and you can go ahead and have your little microphone clip to it as well. And then these days you can find inexpensive lavalier microphones that you can clip to your collar or to your shirt or something like that, and then plug it up into into the USB port, and it will work out very well. The problem with these things is that, again, unless you are planning to use nothing but your voice, people will go ahead and start recording, and they'll get into so much trouble. Let me explain why. The same thing applies, by the way, to when you're talking in front of a live audience and using a microphone. Okay. Now I'm going to put down my phone. I'm going to go ahead and pick up another one of my tools right now, which I happen to have is a wireless microphone. This is my favorite tool right now, especially when it comes to talking to crowds. I host trivia between 5 and 6 nights a week. My crowds average between 30 to almost 100 people that are playing at the same time, and every one of them every time say, your voice sounds so amazing, you've got the radio voice. But what they don't understand is it's cultivated, yes, it sounds pleasant, but I've prepared myself to do this so that it sounds so professional that they wouldn't even know if I didn't have a radio show or a radio show voice. Now, I mentioned the last time in the video that I talked to was that when it comes to sounding professional or sounding more professional for your videos or your audios, the closer that you have a microphone to your mouth, the better you are. So, for example, right now I'm recording into this podcast microphone right now. If I were to lean a little closer, you could go ahead and hear me with no echoes whatsoever, and it sounds so much better. But at the same time, you hear everything, including the breath that I'm taking when I go ahead and do that. And if I have to breathe out, you can hear that as well. It's the same thing when it comes to using a handheld microphone. The closer you get to your mouth, the easier it is to go ahead and sound crisp, to sound clear, to sound like you are the most professional thing that you got. Now, How close you want it, that's up to you. Personally, I like to hold it on my chin. And the reason I like to do that is because the best way to get a microphone to pick up your voice is over the top, coming up and over. A lot of people will try to go into the microphone, and that does work, but most of the time you're catching every little thing that you can possibly think of, including the pop, including the the licking of the lips, the swallowing, everything literally will come onto that. If you're going over the top, it will go ahead and only catch just what was coming straight out from there, which is typically your voice. Very rare will it catch you breathing, unless you breathe heavy straight down into it, then it's going to go ahead and catch that from there too. The other reason that I like to have it on my chin is because this way, if it's there, every time I turn my head, no matter which way I go, the microphone is always following me. I can't help but make sure that I can be heard no matter what I do. I can switch hands, but the microphone is still right there in front of my voice, in front of my mouth. Most people will take the microphone and they'll hold it, doesn't matter which hand, but they'll have it like this and they'll start turning away and they'll talk to somebody else along the side, or they'll go ahead and talk up or they'll talk down or something like that. But the microphone stays exactly in one spot, which is exactly what you don't want. You want the microphone to follow your voice, follow where you're going. So always make sure that microphone is in front of you. And if you have it where it's in a line of sight, I'm going to put this down for now. But if you have the microphone in a line of sight and you can always see the microphone in front of you, no matter what you're talking to, it's going to pick up your voice very, very crispy. Now, the next part is going to go ahead and talk about where to, what's the best way to put this here? Where to, where to look, pretty much. Okay. And if you're on a computer or even on your phone, well, let's start with the computer first, okay? If you're on a computer and you can see yourself in the stream that's coming up, that's great because you can tell exactly when you're looking at the person in front of you. And if you can imagine you're talking to a second person holding a conversation with them, you can see that you're talking directly to them. It's not looking up this way and looking across that way and trying to figure out where you're at and what's happening. And it's very distracting when you have a unfocused view. Okay, pretend like you're talking to somebody else. You're not going to go ahead and be talking to them and look across the way and just to sort of imagine what's happening over here, or see what's happening over this way. Again, it's very unprofessional, and this way people feel like they're more engaged with you. That's a very, very good thing to go ahead and have. Now, a lot of times, what I like to do also when I'm going ahead and making videos and or having my podcast or even my trivia shows, when I'm doing this, I have to have a script in front of me. Okay. Now I say script. A script can even be an outline. Outline, just basic jotting down of notes that need to be talked about at different points throughout the evening. And that's a very perfect and helpful thing to have, because if you've got it, then you're going to be able to go ahead and read what it is, and nobody else is going to know that's happening, as long as you don't, start picking up your notes and go, I'm going to read off of this and go from there. Now, here's an idea of what I mean. There's a lot of times my outlines will be set on something such as this, such as my little yellow handy pad or something like that. But what I really like to do is have just tiny little pieces of paper, even post-it notes. Okay, and post-it notes are fantastic because you can place them. You can place them as close to the camera as possible, wherever you're at, but not covering the camera, and nobody else knows that it's there. So you can quickly glance and make sure you know what it is you're wanting to talk about. You're going on to the next idea, and nobody knows that you're doing anything different. It's a very professional way of looking at things. If you watch the camera views on people at the news professionals are fantastic when it comes to this. Okay, they have what used to be called cue cards, and now it's basically cue screens. They'll have screens up above or beside the camera itself, on one side or the other, just close enough to the camera so they're looking at the screen and reading what's on that cue card or that cue screen, and it still looks like you're being looked at in the camera eye as well. So that's a very, very great way to go ahead and do it. Have yourself an outline. Now, if you have to go ahead and write out an outline and you pick it up every once in a while and refer to it, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It makes you look more personable in doing so. But if you want to go ahead and look professional, have it, like I said, as close to the camera as possible, but not blocking the camera view, so you can go ahead and keep on referring to it as you go along. That is probably the best thing that I can go ahead and tell you when you're doing that. So the hacks that you got for today's video basically are this: the microphone you have, again, keep it close to your mouth. Let it follow your mouth the whole time, every which way you go. I personally love the handheld mics myself anyway, because I had basically 35 years worth of live shows, and it works for me. It gives me something to hang on to, so I don't have my hands flip-flopping every which way or doing something like that. And a lot of times you'll find that my shows, I've got kind of like this little podcast microphone too. I've got my own little microphone stand, so it's sitting right there, and I'm able to go ahead and talk into it without any issues. And I don't have to talk, I don't have to move it, I don't have to touch it. I can do other things such as type on the computer or move on to my show, and it's still right there, and I don't have to worry about it, as long as I remember that I have to talk into the microphone, not looking away and doing other things from there. So use your tools. If you got a phone, oh, that reminds me, that was something that I wanted to go ahead and do too. Here's a bonus tip for you, okay? Which I didn't mention before. When you're on your phone and you're trying to record, again, if you're just using the podcast function, speak directly into the microphone, right? But if you're using your phone for a video, please, 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 please avoid this mistake. Okay. Now let me bring it up in front of me. Here's what I mean. Mistakes. Mistake number one is this: you have your phone, you're trying to go ahead and make your video up, and you're doing one of these things here. You're just going on and every which way, and you're walking, you're talking, it makes people sick, motion sick, literally, because you're moving every which way. You're not still. They can't focus on anything, and your face is not still enough for them to focus on, because what's happening behind them is what's the distracting part. Don't move around with your phone. Okay. Next, don't hold your phone down like this. Don't hold it down on your belly or your chest where you're looking down into the phone. It's Again, it just looks weird, because what they're doing is they're looking at whatever is above you, whether it's the clouds or the ceiling or the um, the sky, whatever the case is that's happening above you. This is what's going on the background of the phone, and again, it's super distracting. Okay, so here's what you want to do when you're doing a video. First of all, look at what's behind you in the phone. Take a picture of yourself in the phone from where you're at. If your face looks great, perfect. But then what's happening behind it? Are there a lot of distracting pictures, like somebody that's got their tongue sticking out in the background? Is it a clear view with nothing on it? Is it kind of like what I've got right now in this particular room here, with the bookcase in the background and the stuff? Is it distracting to what the person that you're talking to will do? This is what you have to avoid. Okay. So hold the camera up in front of you to where you're looking straight out at eye level, not down, not up, not side to side, moving around, straight out at you. This will get difficult after about a minute, because your arm's going to get tired. So the best thing to do is to buy yourself a tripod. You can find a very inexpensive tripod. They range from about $5 at the cheapest, or you can even make your own if necessary. And if you want to get a professional one, it'll cost you about $40 or so. Either way, these are fantastic tools to go ahead and do. Get yourself a tripod. It will hold that phone right there in front of you at a set distance. And as long as you're talking into that phone or looking into that phone, like I'm doing with the computer right now, then you're going to look very professional in doing so. Always, always, always talk video to yourself, because yourself is then looking at out of the screen at somebody else, and they feel this connection. I guarantee you this will make the biggest, biggest elevation in your professional look when it comes to doing these podcasts, when it comes to doing these shows, when it comes to doing anything else. All right. So once again, that's the main thing. Now, if you have to focus on something else, um, and or you have trouble, a lot of times I will have trouble trying to video myself because I'm not sure what it is that I want to say. And that's because I like to react with other people. My best unscripted type of show, of video, of whatever is bouncing ideas back and forth with another person. It's interacting when you're doing that. So even if you're doing this, if you're constantly feel like you're going um and it comes across where you don't really know what you're trying to say, even though you want to say it, and your tongue seems to be getting all tied up in knots, and you're just twiddling with your hair, and you're trying to fiddle with the chords or something like that. The best thing I can go ahead and tell you right there, and here this is a bonus for you as well, is get a second person. Have somebody to talk to. They don't have to be on the camera. My wife can't stand to be on camera. She can't stand to be in front of crowds, but she holds a fantastic conversation. So, what you can do is you can have that particular person record you. You're still talking to them. They have the camera in front of their face, so they're watching what you're saying, even though you're responding or interacting with them as well. And it really makes a huge difference a lot of times, because then it feels like it's a live conversation instead of a pre-recorded one. Okay. I know that was a lot. Some great tips right there. Please use these things, because it will literally take you from absolute beginner to almost extreme professional in the space of a heartbeat. Okay. Get a script, keep it close by, keep your microphone where your voice is, where your mouth is. Talk to the second person if you absolutely need to. And always try to go ahead and remember that the person that you're looking at into the camera is what they are seeing coming back out again. So remember that all the stuff behind you that's going on, that, by the way, that's not just video wise, that's audio too. So if you're trying to go ahead and make your podcast or your video or whatever it is, and it's very noisy outside, all that's going to be super distracting also, which is once again why you want to get as close as possible to the microphone without getting super intimate with the camera at the same time. Okay. So you might have to go ahead and tweak it from there, but try to keep the quiet, try to keep what's going on behind you and as distraction free as possible. It'll keep your focus on the camera, and it'll keep their focus on you rather than what's going on around you. I hope this helps. I hope you have a great time. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.